painting you are about to see was so controversial in its time that when it was first displayed, more than 80 university professors signed a petition demanding that it be removed, but not because it was bad, but because it was far too provocative. Originally, this painting was filled with naked bodies. You could see a pregnant woman, and among all these figures stood death itself. Everything was mixed together in a kind of dark vision of life. Critics said it was immoral, a perversion, and at that time they even called it pornography. Unfortunately, the original painting was destroyed in 1945. It no longer exists, and all we have left is this black and white photograph that gives us an idea of how shocking this image must have been in person. Its name is Medicine, and it was painted by Gustav Klimt in 1901. However, the story of this painting actually begins in 1894. That year, the Ministry of Education of the Austro-Hungarian Empire decided that the Grand Assembly Hall of the University of Vienna needed a decoration worthy of its prestige, and they were not looking for just any decoration. They wanted a series of monumental paintings for the ceiling of the Aula Magna. The idea was to represent the great faculties of knowledge, philosophy, medicine, and jurisprudence. Three serious, academic, and almost sacred concepts for a university like this. The commission asked for classical allegories with heroic figures, recognizable symbols, and of course, a celebration of reason and scientific progress, a type of art that would reassure the rectors of the time and look good in institutional photographs for posterity. For this task, they chose Gustav Klimt. At that moment, Klimt was a successful painter with academic training, already known for decorating theatres and official buildings. He seemed like the logical choice. But what they perhaps did not take into account was that Klimt was no longer the same artist he used to be. His art had changed drastically. By the time he began working on this commission, Klimt had become one of the leaders of the Vienna Secession, an artistic movement that sought to break away from the rules of traditional art. The artists in this group wanted to paint something freer, more expressive, and more symbolic. They were already tired of rigid figures with robes and books, and Klimt in particular was moving further away from decorative painting and plunging into themes that were psychological, sexual, and existential. So of course, when the moment came to deliver the first work of the series, Philosophy, the reaction was uncomfortable. This painting was nothing like a glorious allegory of human thought. It was a mass of bodies floating in darkness, with a faceless head and death lurking behind them. There was no classical wisdom in it, no Greek gods, just pure existential chaos, and that was only the beginning. Two more paintings were still to come, Medicine and Jurisprudence. Medicine was the next painting to be delivered, and the criticism it received was even harsher than the one before it. At the top of this painting, we see a column of naked human bodies, men, women, the elderly, babies, all floating as if carried by an invisible current. Their positions vary. Some appear still, others twisted, and others simply disoriented. These bodies are neither on earth nor in the sky. They are suspended in a weightless space, literally in the middle of nowhere. Among all these bodies, we can distinguish a human skeleton. Klimt paints it as the personification of death, intertwined with the living. And right beside it, we see a pregnant woman standing with a pronounced belly, fully in gestation, a metaphor of new life and absolute death, literally side by side. Lower down, almost in the foreground, stands Hygeia, the Greek goddess of health. Klimt paints her as an imposing figure, looking straight ahead, holding a ritual cup with a serpent coiled around it, drinking from it. This is a classical symbol of medicine, the same one we still see today in the emblems of hospitals and pharmacies. But here comes the detail that bothered doctors the most. Hygeia has her back turned to the rest of the painting. The goddess does not look at the river of bodies behind her, nor does she attempt to help anyone. She is completely isolated, as if her presence were useless. Seeing this, the doctors wondered where the medical instruments were, the books, the white coats, any recognizable symbol that this painting celebrated the power of medicine. However, there is nothing. In this work, there isn't a single trace of medicine as a science. With this piece, Klimt did something very direct without having to explain it. He reminded the world that medicine cannot eliminate the deepest human suffering, it cannot prevent us from aging, and it certainly cannot stop death. When the painting was first shown, it was labeled as pornographic. At that time, displaying so many naked bodies, women in sensual poses, and especially including a pregnant woman, was something academic art simply did not accept. The doctors at the University of Vienna were furious. They said the work was an insult, a perversion. Some called it sick. Others claimed it was unnecessarily sexual. But deep down, what bothered them most was that this painting showed no achievement, no victory. It only showed that all of us, even them, are still vulnerable. The scandal was enormous. There were petitions to censor it, letters, articles in newspapers, and the debate grew so intense that it ended up in the Austrian parliament. But despite all this controversy, the painting continued its journey. It was not installed at the university, but it did not disappear either. In fact, it found a new destination, one that, ironically, would later lead it to a tragic end, which we will discuss next. But before we go into that, let me remind you that if you would like to have a reproduction of this painting in your own collection, you can now find it in our catalogue. In the link in the description, you can visit our website and discover more than 700 historical artworks to choose from, so you can hang your favorite one at home. The video you're watching right now is an example of how you can turn your house into your own personal museum. Shipping is free worldwide, and by purchasing from the store, you'll be supporting me so I can continue creating more videos like this. You have the link in the description. Now let's continue. After all the scandal and criticism, the University of Vienna ultimately decided that it did not want the painting. So Klimt did something unusual, something I honestly had never heard of before. He paid out of his own pocket to buy back this work and the other paintings from the commission. However, he did not modify them or tone them down. He simply took them with him. Over time, the painting passed into private hands. It ended up in the collection of the Lederer family, one of Klimt's main patrons and one of the most important Jewish families in Vienna. There it remained for years, far from public controversy, but perfectly preserved. Until 1938, when Austria was annexed by Nazi Germany. The Nazis not only occupied the country, but also systematically looted Jewish art collections. The Lederer collection was confiscated, and with it, medicine, philosophy, jurisprudence, and several other works by Klimt. The Nazis transferred these paintings to a safe storage site at Schloss Immendorf, a remote castle where they kept the artworks they wanted to preserve for themselves. But the end came in 1945. As Soviet troops advanced into Austria, the SS received orders to ensure that nothing of value fell into enemy hands. Their solution was as simple as it was devastating. They decided to burn the castle. The fire destroyed everything, hundreds of artworks, including Klimt's 3 university paintings. What we have today is very little. Of medicine, only a single black and white photograph survived, taken years earlier, along with a few sketches Klimt kept during his lifetime. Thanks to these materials and modern digital reconstruction projects, there is now an approximate version generated with artificial intelligence, which is even displayed at the Belvedere Museum in Vienna. But the truth is that we will never really know what its colors, details, or textures looked like. So maybe it's worth asking this question. How dangerous can a painting really be for an entire country to reject it, censor it, and leave us today with nothing but technology to rebuild it? In 1901, they called it pornographic, but now we see it as a lost masterpiece that, ironically, ended up saying more about us, about our fears, our limitations, and our contradictions than many of the works that actually survived. I would love to read your thoughts about this painting in the comments. Thank you for watching until the end, and I'll see you in the next video.